If you're trying to find yourself outside of your true identity, you will be forever searching. You are not in the things that are created by the hands of man, but you are a host of your own belief systems. Every day we experience you in what you hold as truth, mostly about you, and then your environment, which is largely created by your atmosphere. So your atmosphere is your own creation. That is how powerful you are. But we find a lot of people don't know this truth. So they end up living their lives being influenced by other people's atmosphere. They carry the atmosphere of the next person. They themselves do not understand that it is what you believe, it is what you have become that causes you to experience the life that you are experiencing. Let us look at a story that is told to us by Saint Mark in Mark's Gospel, the 4th chapter, starting from verse 38 all the way through to 40. This is when Jesus was with his disciples and they were confronted by a storm. And I want you to see how the disciples dealt with the situation and how Jesus dealt with the situation. But Jesus was in the stand sleeping on the cushion. So they woke him up and said, "Teacher, don't you care that we perish?" Then Jesus got up and rebuked the wind and the sea. "Silence," he commanded, "be still." And the wind died down, and it was perfectly calm. Verse 40 says, Jesus asked the disciples and said, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" Jesus was shocked at how the disciples responded to the storm, because that could only mean that the disciples were acting outside of what Jesus had been teaching them. It is important to understand that you are an expression of what is inside of you, or your life is an expression of what you bring out. So when confronted with situations, what comes out is who you are. So Jesus understood that he was the Prince of Peace. This is told to us by the prophet Isaiah, that Jesus was the Prince of Peace. So Jesus understood that. He was the carrier, he was the host of peace. Remember, you are an expression of your belief system. So Jesus understood that he was a host of calmness, he was a host of stillness, he was a host of peace. And so the storm was an action, or rather was an event that happened outside of Jesus. It did not have anything to do with Jesus. It was performing by itself, and the only people that could be affected by that storm were the people that were in that environment, that allowed themselves to be in that environment, that allowed themselves to be in that atmosphere. And so those were the disciples. So the disciples were they, sometimes you are confronted by situations that minister to you what you already have experienced in the past. So the disciples probably knew the capacity, or rather the capabilities of the storm, and they were just wanting to protect themselves. But in the interim, in that space, they were actually also inviting the power of the storm, because the more they acknowledged the storm, the more they were bringing out the ideas that came from the mind of how to deal with the storm. But Jesus came out and said, no, 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 this is not how you deal with it. This is not how you deal with the situations. Listen to Colossians 3 verse 15. "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts, since as members of one body you were called to peace, and be thankful." So Jesus is the the expression of what was supposed to happen.